up a crowd of protesters who were trying to get access to the Ministry of Interior. Men in plain clothes armed with knives, petrol bombs and bricks also clashed with protesters. Well, with more on Libya and the fighting scene across the country on Sunday, here's Charles Stratford.
Another defiant wave to his supporters in Tripoli. Muammar Gaddafi appears on Libyan state TV. No explanation was given as to why his appearance was so brief. The propaganda battle continues to shroud verifiable facts on the ground when media access remains limited in so many areas. These are the latest pictures obtained by AlJazeera taken in the town of Misrata. They appear to show dead pro-Gaddafi fighters. A foreign ministry spokesman claimed local pro-Gaddafi groups were supporting the military in Misrata, a town some 100 kilometers east of Tripoli that it earlier claimed had been recaptured from the opposition rebels.
One of the brigades took the repositioned and didn't want to engage in the fighting. And despite that, the locals managed to capture 37 of the militia groups. In Zawiya, the situation is still as yesterday. The city is under control. There are few people who are taking human shields in some houses and flats and using their own families as a human shield. And this issue is left to the locals to resolve it. The army took a decision not to attack those flats and houses. And they are taking just defensive position.
Evidence of heavy fighting in Misrata is all too clear. These pictures appear to show anti-Gaddafi fighters celebrating on tanks they say they've captured. But a member of the Civil Committee for Misrata Affairs described the situation on the ground as desperate, and he called for international action.
A no-fly zone is long overdue, and selective surgical strikes, I think, are called for.
An opposition spokesman denied his forces were losing control of towns they said they had captured.
In a statement to the Libyan people, the revolutionary forces confirmed that they are still in control of the areas that have been liberated, and what has been broadcast on the channels is incorrect and is not true on the ground. And you journalists have confirmed yourselves that we are in full control of the areas we have liberated.
No matter the claims and counterclaims by both sides, the casualties continue to rise. This is the local hospital in Ras Lanouf. Opposition forces were forced to retreat here after heavy fighting for control of Bin Jawad on the road to Gaddafi's hometown and stronghold of Sirte. Whether either side is making as much ground as it claims still remains very unclear, but it seems the propaganda mirrors the fighting. Libya is a divided country, and both sides are telling very different stories. Charles Stratford, AlJazeera.
Migrant workers in Libya have been fleeing the country since the uprising began. But on the Tunisia-Libya border, workers from the African country of Ghana say they're being discriminated against, and many feel their government has abandoned them. Mohammed Val reports.
Anger and protest at Ras Jdir on the Libyan border with Tunisia. More than a week after they have crossed the border fleeing the fighting in Libya, these African workers from Ghana are feeling desperate, and they say they've been let down by their country.
We want to go! We want to go! We need the help!
It's very clear these Ghanaians are not angry with the Tunisian government. They said they love the Tunisian government. They said they love Tunisia, but they are angry with their own government, they say, because it has not come to help them.
They also complain of what they think is discrimination against them in the camp.
Everywhere we go, Bangladesh. We don't know where to eat. When we join a queue, tabu, Bangladesh, no Ghana, no Nigeria. You don't understand. We don't understand the reason why we are black or what.
But local Tunisian workers and volunteers are denying the charge.
Guys, you are in home here. You are home right now here.
Yes.
So we're gonna help you to go back. We will help you to go back.
Ghanaian migrants have described some of the horrors they went through before getting out of Libya.
You see, they take my money. They knock stick on my back. We want to go Ghana. We want to go. Ghana government to come and take us from here.
One of their wounded still cannot walk.
No problem. Keep quiet.
Another is writhing from cramps and fever inside the tent. It's obvious that the situation of these African workers was hazardous. The rebels accused them of serving as mercenaries for the Libyan regime, and at the same time, they say they have been beaten and looted by Gaddafi's security forces. After all those hardships, they now have only one demand.
When are you taking us? When are you taking us back to Ghana?
Mohammed Val, AlJazeera, Ras Jdir on the Libyan-Tunisian border.
Truck drivers in Gaza are on an indefinite strike. They're protesting against Israel's permanent closure of the commercial Karni crossing in the north of the Strip. This leaves the Karam Abu Salem crossing in the south as the only way for goods to get in and out of Gaza. Nicole Johnston has more from Rafah.
Here at Rafah, hundreds of Gaza's truck drivers are on strike. They blocked the entrance to the Karam Abu Salem crossing, and that means at the moment no supplies can get in and out of Gaza. Now they're striking because Israel has closed the Karni crossing, and the drivers are saying that they won't work until it reopens. Now, Karni used to be the main export and import point for Gaza, but when Hamas took over, Israel closed it, except for gravel and grain, and now Israel has shut it down completely.
Karni
is a well-prepared crossing for security and infrastructure. It's cheaper. It's closer to the city, to the factories, to the warehouses and to the wholesalers. In addition, from the Israeli seaport to the crossing, it's only 35 to 40 kilometres. But Karam Abu Salem is 3 times further than Karni, and its capacity is very limited. It's also more expensive.
Now, Israel says that it's closed the Karni crossing for security reasons and that it's expanding the capacity of the Karam Abu Salem crossing. But for people in Gaza, that's not enough, and businessmen and drivers here, they don't believe Israel. They say that they had a perfectly good crossing in the first place that never should have been closed, and that this is in fact another attempt by Israel to tighten the siege. Nicole Johnston, AlJazeera, Rafah.
Preliminary results out of Estonia show the centre-right government will stay in power for a second term. Prime Minister Andris Ansip's coalition has won a clear parliamentary majority. This is the Baltic country's first election as a Eurozone member. In France, an opinion poll in Le Parisien newspaper suggests the leader of the far-right National Front Party could win the first round of next year's presidential election. Charlie Angela reports.
The face of France's far-right politics. Marine Le Pen replaced her father Jean-Marie as leader of the National Front Party just 2 months ago. France's next presidential election is approaching, and now a poll published in Paris's leading newspaper is making uneasy reading for President Nicolas Sarkozy. It suggests that if the French public were voting today, Le Pen would win the first round with 23% of the vote. That's 2% ahead of either Sarkozy or Socialist Party rival Martine Aubry. Despite the news, Le Pen says her party won't get complacent.
I see this poll as an indication. I don't see it as an established fact.